Hey folks, good morning and welcome to another episode of Steelers Morning Rush. I'm Alan Saunders. It is Friday. We made it to Friday, January 24th. And I'm very excited to talk to you about my plans for next week. The Pittsburgh Steelers are off, but I am still working, going to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. We'll be leaving, I believe, next Sunday. So I think when I talk to you for the next time on this show on Monday morning, I will be somewhere on the road to Mobile or in Mobile already. Still figuring out the exact plans. I drive down there. I like driving, and you need a car to get around down there anyway, and it's an expensive flight. So I make the drive about 15 hours. And so, yeah, next time you see me on this show, we'll be in a little bit of a different setting, and probably will be in a different setting for a while, as I will be in Mobile for 4 days. And 5 days, I'm sorry. And then I will be going to Orlando for the Pro Bowl, and then going to New Orleans for some coverage of the Radio Row week of Super Bowl 59. So lots of good stuff coming up there. Excited about all of that. Today, I want to answer a question I got on the YouTube platform yesterday. Matt McGrath said, "Hey guys, absolutely love the show. Overall insight from a fan and media perspective is different. Way to analyze the state of the team." Yes, I'm psyching up for my question to be answered, but I asked because Alan mentioned Chris Godwin. Is he really a good fit for us? We need an X receiver, but even when we bring him on and he's still good, it leaves a hole in the outside at receiver and nullifies Calvin and Roman's value. Let me know if he's really a good fit. So I'm just going to take this question and kind of broaden it and say, what type of wide receiver should the Steelers be looking for? Because they obviously need help at wide receiver. They went into the season without really a number 2 or number 1 alongside a starter alongside George Pickens that deserved to be there. And they finished the season in the same place. So what should the Steelers be looking for at wide receiver? And I think the easy answer is anybody, as long as they play outside. Any receiver that plays outside is a good fit for the Steelers right now, because there are multiple sort of roles there that are available. You could have a Deontay Johnson type, right? A separator, a player that you would call like a Z receiver, who you can play off the line. You get him a free release. You can work him in between the tackles. You can work him outside, still has deep speed. There's lots of like Jamar Chase is probably the sort of archetype of that receiver that's the best around the NFL. Now, who of those are available in free agency and in the draft? I think Emeka Egbuka, a player from Ohio State that a lot of people have targeted for the Steelers at the end of the first round, is more like that kind of player than say Chris Godwin, right? Some other guys around the league that might be available. Stephon Diggs, to me, is that kind of player who is a free agent and likely available. DeAndre Hopkins, I think at this stage of his career, is probably more like that kind of player than he was earlier. So there are some options there. Amari Cooper has been that kind of player. We talked about him a little bit. PFF mentioned him as someone the Steelers could be after. I actually kind of like that signing if it's reasonable, coming off a down year split between the Cleveland Browns and the Buffalo Bills. Then you have your sort of traditional X receiver, basically drafting another George Pickens or like Chris Godwin or whatever. Somebody who's big, tall, strong, fast, plays on the outside almost exclusively, would be a good jump ball guy, a good deep threat, a go ball guy. Those kinds of players, you can have 2 of them, especially in this offense, especially when you play a lot of 12 personnel. It's fine to have that kind of balance where you have a deep threat on either side. It really makes teams pick. It really would be a way to get teams away from double teaming George Pickens if George Pickens is here long term. And if George Pickens is not here long term, then he's only got 1 year left on his contract. So you really need like that X to be a future starting option as well. So if you're in the draft, Trey Harris from Ole Miss is the guy to me that is like, yes, that is an X receiver. That is another George Pickens. That is a tall, physical outside guy. And so there's lots of these kinds of players. Any of them fit, I think. Any of the kind of outside options, any of the flanker options that are still outside receivers but have more developed route trees, better route runners. Jordan Addison is another really good example of a player like that from Minnesota. So, yeah, lots of those all the way around. The thing they cannot take is another slot receiver. They already have two, Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson. Certainly those guys can play on the outside, but I wouldn't call either of them good at it. I'm not sure I would call Roman Wilson good at anything at this point. We need to see more out of him. I think Calvin has shown himself to be a good receiver in the slot, but certainly they don't need any help there. So, like, when you're looking at this list of free agents, guys that play in the slot a lot, like Cooper Kupp and Keenan Allen, really just do not interest me very much. I don't think they're good fits for the Steelers at all. They need someone who can be that outside receiver obligately. So that's why Tee Higgins, Chris Godwin, those guys fit perfectly. But there are only so many of those guys out there. In fact, they might be the only two. And we talked yesterday about why getting Tee Higgins might be difficult for the Steelers. Now, the other ones, the separators, Devontae Adams might be available, for example. There are more of those players, I think, out there. Deebo Samuel's a bit of an interesting fit. He kind of plays like a big slot on the outside role, a little bit of a guy that doesn't fit into a box exactly. Smitty and I talked about him yesterday as being a potential trade target. There are lots of different body types the Steelers could use a wide receiver, especially when you consider the uncertainty going forward with George Pickens. You're really looking at the only sure things they have in this wide receiver room beyond 2025 are Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin. So really, at the end of the day, just draft somebody 6 foot taller or sign somebody 6 foot or taller. As long as they play the wide receiver position, that's a good fit for the Steelers. That's all I got for right now. I'll be back with Smitty, and I believe DB will be joining us as well on this Friday afternoon for Steelers Afternoon Drive around 6. I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about there. And then, of course, like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube platform as we are driving along towards 15,000 subs. We're really excited about that. I'm sure it's going to happen while I'm on the road next week and actually the next 2 weeks. And, until next time, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and enjoy.